Hello guys, welcome back to another Deli podcast. So today we are going to be doing I think this is a pretty fun one. It's kind of like a season preview, but it's a bit different. So what I made was a list of every team's my predictions of every team's breakout player, every team's most underrated player, and every team's MVP. So, let's get right to it. I'm going to pull up the list um of teams and then we can get started. So I hope you guys are excited for season 15. It's gonna be a really fun one. So first we're gonna start with the Alamo, and I think their breakout player is gonna be running back Vance Panda. Very good player. He's gonna finally be the focal point of the offense, and not only the offense at this point, probably the team. Thus, he's gonna also be the team MVP in my opinion. And my most underrated player on that team is left tackle Tyson Volters. Next up, we have the Alligators, in which they made a lot of offseason changes. I think their breakout player is going to be Bobby Thomas, defensive end. He's going to help a lot that he has Xander Kane on the other edge. They're not going to be able to double team him. So Bobby Thomas should be in the clear and being a primary pass rusher this season. Next up, as most underrated player, we have linebacker Kingston Walker. He's been a star defensive player for the Marauders for the past few years, and I don't think he gets enough recognition. Very good player, huge, a lot of hit power. Gonna be a great leader for that Alligator team. And they're a team MVP. It's tough because they have Xander Kane, but gotta give it to the last year's MVP, Jacob Booker. I'm gonna go with him being the team MVP. Next up, we have the Avengers. And for the Avengers, I believe their breakout player will be defensive end Malik Boston. After a year removed from sitting out a year, he is back and ready to go. And I have a lot of faith in him that he's going to be very good this year. As long as he's active, he should have a great bounce back or comeback season. Their most underrated player is by far Corey Fulton, and he definitely could have been the breakout player as well. Corey Fulton's been a really good cornerback, a really good playmaking cornerback specifically the past few years. Doesn't get a lot of recognitions, but is an absolute animal. And their team MVP has to be Ludwin Castellanos, the wide receiver. Not really close there. He's just by far and away the best. I mean, Toby Colbo is really good, but he's not Ludwin. So, not yet at least. He has potential. But next up, we have the Bears. And so for their breakout player, I don't know if they're gonna start Jack Martello or Jalen Ball, but I'm gonna put Jack Martello here. I think he's gonna be the breakout player. Not that Jalen Ball is not as good as Jack Martello. I just think that Jack Martello is gonna start. Whoever starts there would be my breakout player for this one. And for most underrated player, I have running back Jarkel Joyner. And as team MVP, again, I have whatever quarterback starts there. I don't know if they're going to start Martello or Ball. I think they're going to start Martello because they gave him a lot of money, but I do not know. So, again, both quarterbacks very young, very good, both tons of potential. Either one could be a great starter for years to come. So, yeah. Next up, we have the Blizzard, and I have Avery Mirande as all three of these as the most underrated, the breakout, and the team MVP. Mirande never turns the ball over, really good at that. Doesn't have much of an arm, but he's mobile enough to move around, complete a high percentage of his passes, led the league in pass percentage, completion percentage once. So yeah, he's a pretty good guy. Next up, we have the Chiefs, and my breakout player for them is Jerry Long, the inside linebacker. Chiefs have always been one of those teams that always has a solid defense, so I expect Jerry to step up and continue the trend. Most underrated player, got to give the cornerback Max Carter. Chiefs defense wasn't as bad as it could have been last year. Max Carter was a huge thing of that. He's the cornerback one there, and though he's not the best cornerback one in the league, he definitely plays above his overall. Played very well last year, and excited to see what he does this year. And team MVP is definitely middle linebacker Trevor Watson. Free agent acquisition, great player, always puts up a high number of tackles, should be in for another big year as the true leader of the Chiefs. Next up, we have the Copperheads, and I have their team MVP being Cooper McDavid, as it seems to be every year. McDavid, very good quarterback, reliable, needs weapons around him to really make the Copperheads contenders, but he's definitely the team MVP. Most underrated players, left tackle or offensive tackle Kyle Carter, had a great rookie season, and he's going to try to build on that. Defensive end Jalen Killa is my breakout player for them. He's had a rough go. Doesn't really have edge rushers around him. Gets double teamed a lot, but he's been improving with the double teams, and I expect him to put on a show this year, or put on a clinic, have a nice season. Next up, we have the Dogs. I have their most underrated player, or their breakout player, being Mason King, linebacker. He's in a new face on a new team, power rusher. I expect him to show up and put up numbers. He's a pure power rusher, and he should be pretty good. The most underrated player is definitely running back DeAndre Callaway. He's been a solid running back for years, and I expect him to be a solid running back for even a few more years as he gets into his early 30s. Yeah, and their team MVP is without a doubt QB Jacob Stevens, most improved player last year, rookie of the year 2 years ago. He's a very good quarterback, and he continues to build year on, year out, and stuff. So yeah, he's very good. Next up, every team's MVP. This is the Dimes, and their MVP I put as Keandre Long. It was a tough one because quarterbacks I usually give the edge to, but Keandre, veteran dime, been on dimes for longer than their current starting quarterback, which is Uko Pekalong, who is in fact my team's breakout player. But I also have Keandre Long as the team's most underrated player. I think he's going to break out and he's going to be a star. Next up, we have the Dragons, and their team MVP is Raekwon Millins, their newest signing. Expect big things from him. He'll probably see some double teams, but he hasn't had problems with that in LA, and I expect him to have another big year in Indianapolis. For their most underrated player, it's definitely by far Bryce Love Jr. Consistent running back, was a backup to Austin Davis early in his career for the Canines. Since leaving the Canines, he hasn't seen the same success as a full three-down back, but I expect this to be the year it changes. And as their breakout player, I have wide receiver Calvin Marino. A lot of options to choose here for breakout player, and I'm going to give it to Calvin Marino. A lot of young talent on this team, and I think Marino is going to be the main one to break out, but I can see a ton of people breaking out for that team. Next up, we have the Elks. And for their breakout player, I have Walker Zimmerman, safety. He's been a leader for the Elks since he's been on the team, and I expect him to have another great defensive season and even break out a bit. Maybe get more on the stat sheet with some interceptions. Been a high tackle guy in past years. I expect him to continue that trend too. The most underrated player on that team, I'm giving it the right tackle, Terry Boston. Terry Boston's been a nice standstill for the Sandstorms at right tackle for plenty of years. He's no longer on the Sandstorm, and he's going to the Elks. Doesn't get enough appreciation for being one of the best right tackles in the entire league. Next up as the team MVP, did I skip the Flames? No, did I do it out of order? I did do it out of order. Okay, sorry about that. But for the Elks MVP, I just didn't put it. Okay, well, it's definitely Jacob Tarter. I mean, there's not much debate there. He's the star of the team, 99 overall. He's a quarterback, former MVP, former Super Bowl champion, former Super Bowl MVP. He's done everything you could ask of him. Beast player. Next up, we have the Express, and as their team MVP, obviously it's going to be the newest signing, wide receiver Kayvon Carter II. He's a beast. He's going to a new team. I think it's the fourth team in his career, maybe fifth. And I expect nothing less of him to show out and continue to show why he gets paid the big bucks. The most underrated player, definitely got to be William Black. I think Black's going to improve a lot again. He was a leader in receiving yards last year. I think he was second in the league. And with the addition of Carter, this is going to really help Black not see as many double coverages and should do light years for him. And as the most breakout player, I'm giving it to Ulysses Ferraz. Great running back, and the whole offense really benefits a ton from the additions of Kemper Klein and Kayvon Carter. So I expect Ferraz to get a lot more carries too, and definitely make more of them, keep the defense off balance. Next up, we have the Flames, and my most breakout player for them is Nicola Long, the free safety. I expect big things from him. He a key piece that the Flames wanted to acquire, and I think they're going to put him to use him really smartly, use him well, and that's going to help him benefit. Next up for underrated player, got to be running back Rohan Vicente. He's been a beast for years. Had a down year last year a bit, not too much, but not what he's used to. And seems like everyone's already forgot about him being one of the top backs in the league, and expect him to 100% show out next year. And as their team MVP, I gave it to quarterback Josh Boston. There are plenty of options to choose from here. A lot of options for sure, but I'm giving it to the quarterback. He's been on the team. He's going into his third year as a Flame, and I expect him to show why the Flames traded all their value they did for him. Next up, we have the Golden Falcons. Their team MVP. He's definitely got to be quarterback Johnny Manziel Jr. With the run he had at the end of the season last year, no question he's going to be a leader there next year. Very vocal player, very out there as the team leader. Takes responsibility for losses. Just a great locker room guy, the guy you want as your team MVP, and also puts up ridiculous numbers. Their most underrated's got to be left guard Dom Hogue. They acquired him from the Sharks a few years ago, and he's just an absolute beast. And the breakout player, I'm giving it to the undrafted free agent from last year, tight end Tony Stark Jr. I think he's gonna have a nice big year next year. It was pretty quiet last year as a backup tight end, but this year he is now going to be the starter, and I expect to see big things from him. Next up, we have the Golden Knights. Their breakout player, I'm giving it to John Yuta. It was between Yuta Cruz, and what's their other receiver? Ashton Hogue. They're all very good. I'm giving it to Yuta. He's the red zone threat. Expect to see a lot of touchdowns from him. Portnoy should show some improvement too. But most underrated player, I'm giving it to Cruz. Cruz had a down year last year. But he also played next to Master and Carter, got to learn from two of the best. Though he didn't play as much, didn't do a lot of snaps because of Carter and Master, he got a really good experience, and I expect him to be a very good player for years to come. And the team MVP, not really much of a question. It's clearly David Portnoy. I mean, I guess there's an argument for Pat Bob Spongestar, but David Portnoy is your MVP candidate, your Super Bowl MVP. They couldn't have done their run last year without Spongestar or Portnoy, but gotta give it to the quarterback when it's as close as this. Gyro Falcons, their MVP, and the most underrated is definitely Wilbert Long. Not really close. That is what I put, right? Yeah, Wilbert Long. There are team MVPs, again, obviously, David Long Jr. Those two are pretty obvious. My breakout player for them, though, that's going to be tough. I'm going to go with their quarterback, their second-year quarterback now, Tom Brady Jr. He really needs to take a step up as the Gyro Falcons as a whole took a step back. And I expect him to do it. He's got center Bryce Barkowski, a great leader, can see where the blitzes are coming from, and he should really help the quarterback's development. Next up, Canines. I'm going to go with Drake Kill as their breakout player. They signed him last offseason. They had high hopes for him. No need to say they're wrong. They very well could be right. That's why I'm going to pick him as my breakout player. Most underrated, I'm giving it to the young wide receiver, Reginald Jones. Didn't do many snaps last year, but with a few of the key wide receivers leaving the team this year, I expect him to get a ton more snaps this coming year. And their team MVP, got to be quarterback Travis Berger. Yeah, K9 for life, it's going to seem, and no, I definitely think he could easily be their team MVP once again. Next up, we're on the Mad Dogs, and I'm going to go with Jeffrey Killa as their team MVP. Their starting quarterback. They just acquired him. They signed him to a solidly big contract, 3 years, $4 million per, and he's going to have to step up. He's a mobile quarterback. He's got a receiving running back in Hester Delgado. Two great receivers in Escalade Hill and Eli Davis. A great tight end, Elias DeMarco. He's got all the tools, and I think he's going to be able to step up and really have his breakout year. Most underrated player, I'm going to give it to Escalade Hill. Was one of the top tier rookies last year, but no one really gave him credit. Won Offensive Rookie of the Year, but people seem to doubt that. But he was very, very good last year. Touchdown machine, and expect more of the same this year. And as their breakout player, I'm giving it to Elias DeMarco. Not that he hasn't been very productive over the past few years, but I'm going to guess he continues the trend and actually gets top 5 in either receptions, receiving yards, or receiving touchdowns. He hasn't been out of the place on the list yet. He's been very good, but I think he's going to really break out into superstardom this year. Next up, the next team we have is the Marauders, and for their breakout player, I'm going to go with Billy Vicente, the strong safety. Very good player, and no reason why to see he won't break out. He's been learning the system for the past 2 years, and I think this is his year to shine. And most underrated player, going to give it here to Sienna Walker. They just re-signed her. She's a deep threat. LaShawn Westbrook's getting older, and Sienna Walker's learning from maybe the best deep threat wide receiver in league history. Definitely him or Ricky Martello. I mean, I'd give Martello the edge, but it's definitely close. And I'd say Walker really has a breakout year this year. And their team MVP is, though he's older, got to be LeSean Westbrook, team leader, been there forever, almost his whole career at this point. And he's really the type of receiver you want on your team. He's been so good for the Marauders ever since they got him for the trade the first round pick, first overall pick to the Canines for Max Jackson. At the time, everyone kind of yelled at the Marauders, didn't think it was a very good trade, but man, looking at the past, that was a robbery. They got one of the best receivers in the league for years to come. League league leader in receiving yards, I think, last year. So very good player, definitely the team MVP. Next up, we got the Missions quarterback. Drew Pierce is 100% their team MVP. No discussion there. Next up, we got their most underrated player. I'm giving it to D'Angelo Carter. He's been a solid cornerback one. The Missions got a lot of heat for their not very good secondary since Pat Bob's left, and even before that, their cornerback unit. But Carter really isn't the issue. He's not the best, but he's definitely a viable starter for a contender. He just needs help around him, and he's not fit to guard these wide receiver ones, but he does a better job than you probably expect, and he's definitely the most underrated player on the team. Next up, as their breakout player, I'm giving it to cornerback Tyler Murray, fellow cornerback. He was a rookie of the year last year, got a lot of interceptions, made a lot of big plays, overplayed some of the balls. It was a big play or they got a big play. He would trade off, go for the interceptions a lot. I say he becomes more passive this year, doesn't go for as many interceptions, plays more smart, and turns a lot of those overplays into just nice pass deflections in key moments. So instead of going for the game-changing play, I think he might turn into one of the more lockdown cornerbacks in the league. And him and D'Angelo Carter could be a really good combo. If D'Angelo Carter could develop a little bit more and Tyler Murray does have the breakout year, I hope and expect he does. Next up, we have the Monarchs, and I'm going to go with James Derwin as their breakout player. Derwin, longtime Avenger, been Avenger for life, is finally going to London to join the Monarchs, and he was a highly touted prospect who dropped to the second round. I expect him to show why he was a highly touted prospect finally in his third year and really just go off. Next, and they're a most underrated, I'm giving to Charlie Thomas. He's a viable QB that people really don't see. People say he's replacement level, but he's really not. He's a really solid quarterback, and I expect him to continue to be very good. We're not very good, but good. Their team MVP, though, no doubt, the longtime Monarch Baxter McCombs, tight end. He does it all. Veteran, team leader, he's their guy. Next up, we have the Nightcrawlers, and I'm going to give their team MVP. I'm going to give it to Jacob Judge, the new signing. Quarterback that turns the ball over a lot. He's a big play, home run hitter, strong arm, mobile, kind of like a Cam Newton type. And I think he's going to have a big year as the leader of the team. The most underrated player on that team got to be running back Bodie McCombs, receiving back. He can run, though, too. People underestimate his running ability, and I think he has a big year as a full-time back, even though he's in his early 30s. And as the breakout player, I'm going with Roquan Johnson, the free safety. He had a solid year last year, and I expect him to improve on that and have another elite year this year. Next up, we have the London Redcoats, and I'm going to go with Colby Bendick as their breakout player. 2 years removed from his Defensive Rookie of the Year, didn't show much improvement last year. I expect him to improve a lot this year and really be a key factor in that London defense. And next up, the most underrated has got to be A.J. Cooper. He gets overshadowed by Calvin Johnson Jr. and Jalen Mills, but now that Jalen Mills is retired, he is the wide receiver 2 there, and I really expect him to be a key piece and really break out onto the scene this year. Very underrated player. I'm expecting big things from him. Next up, their team MVP, again, Daquan Madison, 99 quarterback. Not much of a discussion there. Next up, we got the Pandas and their team MVP. I'm going to give it to Jamal Ryder, their new signing. He's going to be their quarterback there probably for the next few years. If they're probably looking to replace him, but he is their guy. He's a winning quarterback. He's won in the past, and I expect him to continue to be just a winner, Great mobile quarterback. Not much of an arm, but hits the right throws at the right times. Their most underrated players got to be cornerback Hayden Delgado. Also one of my players. Great man-to-man cornerback, been a lockdown cornerback for a bunch of low-tier teams for years, and expect them to continue the trend this year in Pittsburgh. Next up, as their breakout player, I'm giving it to wide receiver Trey Turner. 6'5", standing tall, but that does not take away from his speed. Trey Turner is a dynamic threat. The biggest problem is his hands. Struggled with drops in past years. I expect him to really focus on that this offseason. I think he's going to show that in the games. And he's definitely a potential Calvin Johnson Jr. like player in the future if he can get his act straight or get his hands straight, you know. Next up, we have the Sandstorms, and I'm going with the breakout player being Jabril King. After being an absolute animal at the beginning of his career, King ended up taking a backup role for a few years in London. Don't know why he chose to do that, but then he got traded to the Alamo, where he took another backup role to Vance Panda, and now he's finally on to a team where he gets to start again full time in Phoenix, where his brother excelled, and I expect him to excel just the same way, if not more. Definitely more of a stronger player than Gabriel, probably not as fast, but versatile. Jabril King's everything you want in a running back, and just in an athlete in general. So next up, their most underrated player's got to be defensive tackle Fletcher Davy. A great nose tackle, great run stopper. Doesn't put up the flashy plays, flashy numbers, but man, he is a hard guy. Got to put two guys on him all the time. Got to get the center and guard on him. He is a big boy. Man, he stops the run like no other player in the league. Not many run stoppers as good as Fletcher Davy, and he's been doing it for years. Team MVP. This is a really tough one. Tyler Master or Jack Griffin. Really pick your poison, man. Two of the best players in the entire league right now. Definitely both, I would say, the best at their respective positions at this point. Yeah, I would say Griffin's better than Kane now, and Master's probably better than Hartzov. So, yeah, two great players, both legendary, both team captains for sure. I'm going to give the edge to Master just because he won Super Bowl MVP. And he's working with a young quarterback in Donald Duck. But Jack Griffin, man, just as important. Those two are really co-MVPs there. Um, Next up, we have the Sharks and their team MVP, left tackle Geoff King. He's been in charge of protecting the quarterback for years. The quarterback this year probably going to end up being an undrafted free agent rookie after they took a defensive end in the draft. King's the best offensive lineman, team that's been heavily relying on offensive line for years. Expect them to do the same this year. And that's also why I put Geoff King as the most underrated player. Been a stud left tackle since he's been in the league. Expect him to continue that. My breakout player for this team, going with Roquan Jeffries, the cornerback. He's been a high interception guy, another one of those guys who overplays the ball a lot. I think he's going to continue that, but I think he's going to find more success with it this season. Definitely his play style, kind of like a Marcus Peters. We'll see what happens with him. Next up, we have the Shires, and I believe I picked Alan Carter for all three of these awards. I did indeed. Alan Carter, very good player. He's definitely their team MVP, quarterback, leader of the team. He's very underrated. No one really noticed. He flew under the radar. Only 3,800 yards last year. I think about 20 touchdowns, about 12 picks. But he showed up big in some of the big games. Helped the team win about 6 or 7 games. Was very good, very productive, and showed a lot of promise. And I expect him to break out too. So not only is he underrated, I expect him to have a breakout year. Definitely most improved player watch. Like, wouldn't be shocked if he won it. Very good player. Shires have a pretty good coach. I like him. And I think that team's due for the big things. And I think Alan Carter is going to be at the center of it. Next up, we have the Stars, my favorite team, of course. Eugene Long is going to be my breakout player for him. He's been a beast for years. Another guy that's just been so good for years, underknown. I'm going to say breaks out again. Young player, left tackle for the Stars. Re-signed a massive contract last offseason. And I think he's going to turn himself into one of the best left tackles in the league. And I think that's going to start this year. My breakout player for him, I'm going to go with Fletcher Hames, ex-K9, longtime K9. Signed with the Stars last offseason to everyone's amazement. And the choice ended up being really good. Was a huge playmaker. Revitalized his career in LA. Proved that he could be a star on a team, even if they weren't winning. Proved that he still has what it takes to play in the league, play at a high level. And I'm going to say he's the most underrated player in the league because he plays for the Stars now and because he had such a good year for the Stars. He went pretty under the radar. And their team MVP, this was really tough. I was between a lot of guys. Gotta love all my Stars. But I'm going to give it to their center, Jake Hansen. Great player. He's been a beast for years. He's been on the Sharks and I think the Redcoats, and now he's on the Stars, and I expect nothing less for him to be a leader and protect the quarterback, probably Joey Turncoat. Next up, we have the Sparks. J.D. Winslow's got to be their team MVP. What a productive rookie season he had, winning Rookie of the Year last year. Absolute animal. And then for most underrated and breakout, I have defensive tackle Devon Langford, ex-Redcoat. He learned from some of the really good defensive tackles in the league, and now it's his time to shine in Seattle. And I think he will. I think he'll take advantage of the opportunity to be a nice, maybe even a 10-sack guy. I could definitely see it. Great defensive tackle, great pass rusher, not too bad at run stopping. He's improved on that over the years, but really the massive strides we have seen have been in pass rushing, and I expect him to make even more strides this year. Next up, we have the Waves. Waves? Yep. And they're I'm gonna go with the breakout being Jackson Dragneel. Was a monster in his rookie season. Took a step back in his sophomore year, sophomore slump. I expect him to get right back to where he was in his rookie season, if not progress on that. Their most underrated players got to be John Lincoln back. They signed him to a $30 million per contract this offseason. That's probably too much money for him, but that doesn't underestimate that he's probably definitely worth about 10 to 15 million. One of the league's best centers, great guy at calling. He knows where the pit flushes are coming from. Not the best blocker, but he's the leader and he's really smart. His smarts are really what puts him over the top as one of the top tier centers in the league. And then the team MVP got to be the newly acquired Josh Harlem. I expect him to have a huge season as the leader for the Waves. Next up, we have the White Bears, and their team captain 100% has got to be Jacob Parker. They definitely signed Tyler Turner in the offseason, but I'm going to go with Jacob Parker still being the main top dog there, being that he has that sick contract. Xavier Puncho, I have as their breakout and most underrated. He's been a solid cornerback for him. Again, he's one of those playmaker types as Marcus Peters goes for the ball, and I think he's going to continue that, but I think he's going to end up getting more interceptions this year. Next up, as the breakout player for the Venom, the final team on this list, Gage Grant, the Heron. He had a breakout season the year before, and then he took a big step back. Big step back last year. First year, he took a minor step back and then a big step back last year. I expect him to get right back to that star level with Tim Tebow Jr. They just need to get on the right thing, and that's why he's also the most underrated player. Great possession receiver. He doesn't drop the ball. Great red zone threat. Just a big receiver. Big down, goes down the middle. He's like a tight end playing wide receiver. Not particularly fast, but he takes advantage of his size very well. And that's also team MVP for the Venom. To end the video, Tim Tebow Jr. Obvious reasons. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and peace. Oh, I have to actually turn the video